Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the morning grind. It is so good to have you. I'm glad you're here too, Sable. I am glad you're here too. Good morning, Sable. Good morning, Zero the Blade and James. Multiverse DM. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Lynn. It is great to have everybody. I hope everybody is doing great. We are coming off of what was a fantastic, excuse me. What was a, oh my God, I just spilled my drink. Hang on. Okay. We are coming off of a fantastic table talk last night. Let me bring this up. If you weren't with us last night, come over here. Here's the link. I'll put it in the chat right over here. Copy link right over here. This one right here. Star Wars Ahsoka Episode 4 and 5 review with Doug Burton and Retro Nerd Girl. It was so fantastic to have Retro Nerd Girl on the show last night. She was with us for a dinner and a board game. And really what I want to do actually now is start getting soon, maybe, I don't know if, what is today? Is today already Monday? Oh my God, today's already Monday. But I do want to actually get in a routine where I'm doing 2 table talks a week and 2 dinner and board games a week. I've been trying to figure out how to get that, how to happen, but I'm working on a bunch of other projects. But Retro Nerd Girl had been on dinner and a board game, and it was very good to have her. That was her first time to ever play a game like Hero Quest. But then she came on last night to talk about Star Wars, Ahsoka, and it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic to talk to her. I can't believe that yesterday was already the 17th of September. It's already Monday. I don't know what happened to September. But we had more hope, particularly Doug had more hope. Doug called the meeting, so to speak. So Star Wars, Ahsoka, because he has some hope for Ahsoka now. Because we were very critical of the first couple of episodes. Star Wars, Ahsoka, with Doug and Retro Nerd Girl. Retro Nerd Girl's got a great channel where she does video, movie, and TV show reviews. But we were there last night, so there's the link. I turned it private over here on this channel. So if you were looking for it and you're like, wait a minute, what's here? Well, it's because I turned it private here, and then we're going over to, so its permanent home is over on that channel. Gee, its permanent home is over on the dedicated Table Talk channel. And then I have everything ready to start clipping it because I want to put out some clips about Ahsoka over on the Table Talk channel soon. So that's what's going on. So we have this going on. Those are the videos, popular videos of past live streams. So right there, boom. If you go to the Table Talk channel under past live streams, boom, there we go. So definitely listen if you're interested. Oh, thank you, Stray. Stray's Retro Nerd Girl's channel right over there. Thank you. Sable Phoenix says that's going to be a heck of a streaming schedule. 7 mornings and 4 nights a week. The grind is going to have to give out a few days to make room. That's not the plan. Like I said, I've got to think of eventually in the long term what the situation for this channel is, not the morning grind specifically, but what this channel is going to be. But at the moment, sometimes I can't make it. Sometimes I have to call it off. But at the moment, there's no plans to stop the morning grind. The morning grind is our thing. It's our fun thing. And it plants that flag in the morning for me that by the time 9:30 comes around, I have to have the morning grind going. I really need some help. I do need some help with like an associate. I need an associate producer. And Brianna, I'm going to be talking to Brianna about that more tomorrow to try to, because it doesn't seem like, I'm sure it doesn't seem like it's a lot of work to prep all of the streams. You're like, what do you got to do? But it actually is a bit of work to prep the streams. So it would be, I need some help. And I think Brianna is about to be in a position where she can do that. Also to bring on guests, because that would mean that like if there's one, see, Tuesday, we've got a pretty good schedule with regulars for the Table Talk with Doug and then Brianna every 2 weeks. Brianna can come on every 2 weeks. Doug can be there basically every Tuesday. But then I also want to get back to interviewing some other people, but you got to reach out to people. And I'm an introvert. So sometimes the reason that doesn't happen is because I'm sitting here working on other things. And it's like, oh my God, I got to reach out and try to book a guest. So sometimes it doesn't happen. Yeah, the clips do, because not everybody has, what was it last night? It was 3 hours and 34 minutes. Not everyone has 3 hours and 34 minutes to sit and talk about Ahsoka. But that's why, see, my strategy over here, like popular videos, instead of, whereas this is named according to a movie, what is story, Tombstone, or, the big idea here with the up here, they're much more targeted for a specific subject. Is all Disney Star Wars fan fiction? What's wrong with Sabine Wren? Inquisitors, why? Bad world building and bizarre medieval armor, or whatever. Star Wars world building problems. So I try to come up with a when I'm editing for a clip. It's the topic that's right there. So we will see. Zero the Blaze says, didn't Star Wars take time to build up a following before Disney got it? Yes. Oh, you're moving rocks? Absolutely. Great job. Yes. Well, James says, oh, absolutely not. We know exactly how much work it is. Oh, let's breathe and sip. Oh, well, see, you guys probably do. Stray says, so it would be great if I can come up with some way. I'm working really hard over here over the next 6 months behind the scenes to really get sustainable. I've been talking to a lot of people about that. The division of the different live streams into the different channels is part of that. And I basically been going all the way back to the beginning. I know I hadn't advanced on some of the projects we've been working on here, it seems like, in the last couple of months, but that's because I've gone all the way back to the beginning of all of my project lists. And you guys on the Morning Grind get to see the behind the scenes of this. And then start, so I've gone all the way back to the beginning of the projects, which started with going through all 1,000 YouTube videos and starting to try to resort them. And then I'm stepping back through all of my projects until I come current again to get them in the right place. So let's go ahead and breathe and sip. And so over the next, that's the goal. So starting with September 1, and like I said, I can't even believe it's already September 18th, but starting about September 1, I was like, I'm going back to the beginning, and the goal is to get, make a sustainable operation over here over the next 4 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months, something like that. 6 months at the cap. Let's see. All right. So let's go ahead. Yep. James Stray says, breathe and sip. Everybody got your drink this morning? I do. Got my drink. Let's breathe and sip. 2 deep breaths in and then exhale, and then take a sip of your morning coffee, whiskey, beer, whatever it is that you want, tea, whatever it is that you've got. Let's go ahead and take a sip. So here we go. And sip. Multiverse DM says, yeah, it's hard work. Sometimes a tiny glitch can set you back for days or weeks on a video project. No, I hear you. I completely hear you. I completely understand. That's the post-processing. That's the way it was when I was trying to do dinner and a board game, not live, but here at my house. The last dinner and a board game that I did here at the house, which was that Hero Quest with Megan and Rachel and Leon and Dax. That took me, I bet, a month and a half to do post-production on. And that's talking about being sustainable. That's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable because I can't spend a whole month and a half editing YouTube videos. And the audio in that was so difficult to get right. There were audio problems, which you're talking about. It seems like it's often audio. And there were audio problems here. And I was like, oh my God, the audio here is bad. It was out of sync. What the issue was, the audio was out of sync. And I was like, oh my God, it might be that I cannot salvage this entire show. Now, eventually I did. But it took me, like, all I was doing was trying to salvage that show. So that just cannot be done. Like, that's not a sustainable enterprise over here. I have to be able to shoot things faster than that. Thank you. And yes, please do check out the Raven Keep store. There's Cultist Coffee and the Cultist Coffee mugs. Beer at 8:45 in the morning would be interesting. Well, whatever it is that you need. Oh, I meant to talk more about that last night, and we moved past it because I saw people were talking about that in the chat. PH says, I reviewed the episode because there was conversation in the chat last night about the specific fighting styles that Anakin uses and then Darth Vader uses in the last Ahsoka episode. And I saw that going by in the comments, but we didn't get to it in the conversation. But PH says, on that subject, I reviewed the episode. There's no difference between Anakin and dark side Anakin fighting. It's the same form 5 in the same way. Okay. Stray says, Heath's Geekverse, your post-production was so clutch. Thank you. I fought for it. I had to fight for it. I had to fight for it in a big way. Oh, see, James, there you go. James says, I had a leftover bottle of wine from dinner the other night. I'm going to go ahead and grab it. I can't believe there was wine left over from dinner. But yes, go ahead and pick it up this morning. Okay, so we're going into the arms and equipment guide here in just a second, which has been some fantastically fun conversations this morning. But in also on that spirit of going back to the beginning, and then going back to the beginning of all my projects and working through all of them and trying to get them all set up, even though it's like I'm going back to the beginning here. Brianna also has a kind of go back to the beginning kind of philosophy, because she was working and she's like, no, I just have to go back to the beginning. So I guess sometimes you have to do that. So I went back to the beginning of my projects. Last time, I did no external marketing for Goodnight Sword last time because that was the test. I wanted to test running a Kickstarter in that format and using print on demand, and I thought it went very well. I was very happy with the quality of the book, and then I figured out how the print on demand executes and things like that, and it went very well. So as I was talking to people about, okay, what do I need to be doing over the next 6 months, and so one of the things to do is to go back, and then I'm going to run an Indiegogo campaign for Goodnight Sword and do some external advertising, and I haven't started that yet, but I can talk about that here on the channel on some behind the scenes stuff later, once we get back to world building and taking a look at the projects. But one of the things, talking about going back to the beginning, coming back through, is that Goodnight Sword, which is the very first book in the Tales of Rabavania. If you have someone in your life, like a son, daughter, niece, nephew, younger cousin, child of a friend, who is about the right age for Goodnight Moon, okay, but hey, you like medieval fantasy storytelling, my book is Goodnight Sword. Like, what kind of geek does not want to read their children Goodnight Sword? So Goodnight Sword, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Goodnight Sword back out, and I'm going to run an Indiegogo campaign. I don't know when, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Depends on how the advertising goes. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to advertise it externally, try to bring in some more people. So we've got interest in the Tales of Rabavania and what we're doing here. But if you are new here and you have a child in that age range, then I would love for you to come over here, and I just put the link in here. Goodnight Sword link takes you to this landing page. So if you would like Goodnight Sword free, I've got a free PDF. It's completely free. It's the complete book over here. You can get on the list here, and you will be able to download the free ebook. It's the complete ebook. It's a PDF. So you can read for bedtime tonight if you would like to. You can have the entire book free. You will also be entered to win a free hardback book when we go live, when the book goes live on Indiegogo. I'm going to draw for a free book when we go live. Like I said, in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't have an exact date on that, but I'll draw when we go live, give away a free book. And then if you would like a hardback box copy of it, then it'll be on the Indiegogo, and we'll do basically the same thing, where I'll have a few signed copies as well. I forget, how many copies did I say that I would sign? I think I said that I would sign a total of, did I say 100 copies? I believe I said that I would sign a total of 100 copies. And so I signed some of those. Some of those went away on the Kickstarter campaign last time. So there'll be some fraction of that number left on the Indiegogo to sign. But then otherwise, these will go out. And if you would like a hardback copy of it, you'll be able to get it on the Indiegogo. So I'm excited about that. That's in the interest of going back to the beginning and starting over and trying to work back through my projects. We'll do a Goodnight Sword, because I'm very proud of that book. I think it came out great. And for the right kind of people, which I think they're out there. Don't you want to read your kid Goodnight Sword? I mean, I would. Absolutely. Okay, so that's going on there. Let me take this down. James says that sounded way too upscale. It's a $7 bottle. Oh, I said 13,000 signed copies. Well, if they all sell, I say, okay, if 13,000 signed copies sell, well, I don't know how long it'll take to get them out, but there we go. All right, go auxiliary camera. There we go. Auxiliary camera up. Let me move my microphone. You know, actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I might be able to just move the book over here. The reason I always move the microphone is because I need placement of this auxiliary camera. But let me try something else over here. Oh, I know. I see. I don't want the auxiliary camera to be at an angle. Okay, I'm going to have to think about the auxiliary camera placement because right now it's straight on the book. If I do it another way, it will be straight on the book. So I'll think about auxiliary camera placement. Perhaps come in front of the camera, the computer a bit more. But all right, so here we go. Good morning, Mike. Yeah, I know. I'd have to grow extra arm. I saw some kind of video about somebody who was drawing multiple pictures with both arms and feet. So I guess that's an option too. All right, so we were taking a look at the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Arms and Equipment Guide. And this has been fun because it's inspired a lot of conversation here. This book is from 1991. So we're sort of updating our conversation with what the latest is in arms and armor. But also looking at this from a historical perspective about how this has informed people's understanding of arms and armor in perhaps incorrect ways since 1991. And this book itself references much older material. We were taking a look at the references and reading here because we were saying that it used to be that you go to the library and you pick up some older books on medieval arms and armor, and they would say some pretty weird stuff. But this book, even though from 1991, references books from like 1967, 1939, 1979, 1962. There's 1988, 1952, 1984, 1961, 1979. And we've just gotten so much more information about medieval arms and armor through, of course, new archaeological finds, new understanding of existing archaeology, but then also a lot more experimentation. I mean, can you imagine how much more experimentation there's been since 1991 in creating and trying to recreate arms and armor? Everything from experimental archaeology, let's say academic experimental archaeology, all the way to less scientific things on YouTube. Less scientific, but often will still have some kind of validity. Somebody's going to try, hey, wait a minute. I got this bow. I got this type of armor. What can we do? And the sophistication of that has only grown. So there we go. So we've been talking about what we know now versus what we know then. And we've gotten to chainmail. This has been a fantastic conversation because, like I said, guys like gear. So I didn't think about that. I thought, I've got this book here to talk about it because this was a big book. I remember this book being a really important part of our AD&D collection back in, and I suppose for me it was the late 90s, mid to late 90s. This was a major book because there wasn't other books like this floating around that just talked about arms and armor. So this was an important part of the collection. And I'm sure its terminology, because I wince at some of its terminology. But even this terminology has become standard in a lot of fantasy and stuff. Wait, what's an awesome condition? Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Mail. So we were on this mail chapter right here. So that's part of the terminology here. I don't ever say chainmail. Like when I'm writing, especially when I'm writing. Now, sometimes I suppose sometimes in spoken form it comes out, particularly depending on the context. But I try not to say chainmail. So this does actually talk about chainmail here. But as we've said, this has used the term scale mail instead of just scale armor, because this term mail, I believe this idea that everything is mail, that like mail as a synonym for armor, I believe is a Victorian thing. That's why you started talking about scale mail. chain mail, the horrific plate mail. So my understanding is that this use of mail as a synonym for armor comes from a Victorian thing. And so that's why we say chain mail. So I try to never say that. I always just say mail, with mail being the reference to this particular ring armor right here. That's not chain mail. That's just mail. Right. Now, in some context, especially verbal context, people say chain mail. Okay. And I'm more okay with saying that occasionally than scale mail or plate mail. But James is spelling right here is the one that I started using. And I'm wondering if I were publishing traditionally, if an editor would tell me not to do that. But like in Rabivania, I always refer to Maille using the French word for that, the French spelling, to specifically call out that I'm talking about when I'm talking about mail, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about that. That's mail right there. Yes, and James says mail is from mail, which is French from mesh. And I don't think that's a bad idea, because we were talking about, or using the French spelling here, because we had been talking about I just lost my train of thought. Oh, we were talking about armory technical terms. I think we're talking about technical terms in general, but we were talking about specifically technical terms for different types of armor that are French, like armé, salé, bassinet, but that oftentimes, like at the Royal Armory at Leeds, in English armorers and English scholars will often adopt we seem to say quite deliberately, the French terms, but then pronounce them as if they are English. So they will say armet and salet and bassinet. So I don't have a problem then with, okay, then going in that spirit of things. That was my idea. In that spirit of things, going back, using the French spelling, but then just pronouncing it mail, right? So that this is what we're talking about when we were talking about mail specifically. Of course, this is just budded mail. That's something I made a while back ago. We will talk about that. Oh, James. Oh, Benjamin. Oh, welcome. Hey, it's so good. Benjamin Decker is often in the comment section I see afterwards on the show. So it's so good to see you. Benjamin says, is there anything similar to this that's more recent? The only other product that comes to mind is Kaiser Retro's Waffenkammer, Emperor Retro's Armory from Dark Eye. That's 90s as well. I don't know. I was actually wondering the same thing. Somebody in the comments probably knows. Is there a better, more updated? What is the most current, most updated version of a book like this? Surely some, at least third-party publisher has put something like that out. Surely they have. There was, when I was just looking up Arms and Equipment Guide, the Arms and Equipment Guide, there was one for 3rd edition, and I never had it. I started to collect a lot of 3rd edition books, but I never had it. But that's not that much later. But I'd really like to know as well. We should, if there is, we should totally go over it. We should totally find whatever the most current and updated equivalent to the Arms and Equipment Guide and go over it here on the YouTube channel. So if somebody finds that, let us know. James says, calling everything else mesh when it isn't sounds exactly like the sort of shorthand the Victorians would use. The jackwagons. Exactly. That was my idea. James says, I prefer using the French spelling. It's distinct and unmistakable. And especially since mail, M-A-I-L, has been used in this way. It's a way to deliberately fight against that. Sally says, James Bacon says, the Salé is my favorite type of helm. It's a good one. PH says, is this mail riveted? This mail is not. I was looking for my whole Hallberg. I couldn't find my whole Hallberg. But years ago, this mail is not riveted. I found this. This was just sitting around the office. I made this bishop's mantle. I'll put it on in a second here. But this is just 16 gauge galvanized, not riveted. Which is not historical, but it is what you can make as a high schooler just by going to the hardware store. Whoa. However, this mail is. So I couldn't find my riveted Hallberg. I'm sure it's sitting in the I couldn't find the Hallberg that I made. I did not make this one. This is but this mail right here is. So this is my riveted Hallberg. And I've been thinking more and more about getting armor together again. I got so many things that I want to do in life. But getting armor together for for a particular purpose. That was a problem when I was assembling armor, because there's a lot of different things that you can possibly wear and put together, but you really need a purpose. Like, are you doing SCA armor? I never got my SCA armor, which was my Ostrogothic armor that goes with my helmet around here, completely finished the way that I wanted to. So there's that I could do. I really want a 14th century suit of armor because I love the transitional style. But then also I'd really like to do a 12th century Age of Mail kit. But then also you have to wonder about why. Okay, I'll tell you what I really love to do. Let me tell you what I would really love to do. I would like to walk the Compostela in armor. Now, I had some friends who also want to do the Compostela. It'd be fun to ride the Compostela. I think it would be so cool if you're going to do the Compostela to do it in armor. And if I were to do that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'd want, like, to film and record too. Like, that could be its own kind of documentary. Like, what if you were going to reenact the Compostela? That would be so cool. And then have everybody in armor. So then that's one reason to make armor. Like, all right, we're going to do the Compostela. We're going to do it. Or you could let other people choose different time periods or whatever. And then march the Compostela. That would be cool. That would be so cool. It would be so awesome to make happen. Multiverse DM says the 19 eras produced epic D&D content. It's hard to find replacements. Zero the Blade says even if you translate the Japanese terms to English, they will either be guard or armor. They never use the term mail. Yeah, and I did experiment with making riveted mail. And like I said, I did not make this Hallberg. Actually, this is probably more of a... Well, actually, I might just put it on. I wonder if I should just put this on. It's kind of dirty, but I could go... Hold on. I could find a shirt and I could put this on. We'll see. To see exactly what it is. It's been so long since I put this on. But I did experiment. I did a lot of experiments years and years ago with the actual creation of riveted mail. I had a friend who was actually really early who was into really early the creation of historical riveted mail. Now this particular suit also uses the round heads. You can see that we've got the round headed rivets here instead of the wedge rivets, and he was making the wedge riveted mail. But I think well, like I said, this one is not. This one is round headed. So you should be able to see, instead of wedge riveted. He was really making wedge riveted mail. And I remember making rivets for mail, and I had all the tools. I still have the tools to make riveted mail. because I was like, this is cool. So I made some of it. I was able to make some of it, a small patch, but it takes a while. And the problem is, it was like, oh man, if I can get a male shirt, then I can do all kinds of different looks. But the issue is that you've got a whole bunch of different styles of shirts. Does it need to be knee length? Does it need to be thigh length? Does it need to be long sleeve? Does it need to be short sleeve? And I remember also that one of the issues here is that this shirt really needs to be tailored. This halberd really needs to be tailored to me. I want to lose a little bit more weight. I was trying to lose weight, and then I was thinking about that. That's true. When you can do armor, is it's not easy to resize. So you want to be looking good when you make it, but then that's incentive to stay at that size. But this one probably needs to be tailored to me. But it's difficult to tailor the male if you don't have the exact kinds of rings in here. You'd have to. That's another reason to be able to make your own riveted rings, is to be able to take some of the rings apart here and then retailor the suit. Lynn says, how many people here have ever put on a male shirt or coif? I find they're very heavy, but I suppose you get used to it soon enough. Well, they are heavy, but this is lighter. See, that's one of the things that I don't know what the exact weight on this is. And you're not doing apples to apples because you want to do the same. Is it long sleeve? Is it short sleeve? Obviously, because obviously it's long sleeve, it's going to be heavier. But, one of the issues is that a riveted male shirt is much lighter than this. Now, I've worn quite a few. There's the 16 gauge galvanized. And I think the 16 gauge galvanized actually makes a really nice male weave. I mean, that's a very good looking weave, in my opinion. So 16 gauge, if you're just looking for budded male, that you could do this in 16 gauge aluminum as well. If you're just looking for if you want the look, sometimes you can just really tell that things are aluminum because of the coloration of the metal. But if you're just looking for a good weave that's going to be light and is intended for just costuming purposes, I think 16 gauge aluminum works very well. But 16 gauge galvanized, this is heavy. My 16 gauge galvanized halberd, wherever it is, it must be sitting someplace in the other room. It's pretty heavy. I don't have a weight. That's one thing we do. We could weigh it one morning or something. But it's pretty heavy. And if you were like putting together a D&D book in 1991, I guarantee you did not have access to riveted mail. I mean, when did people even start the riveted mail trend in that wasn't until the late 90s. I mean, that was not starting, I don't believe, until the late 90s. Like I said, I had a friend who was very early in pushing forward the rediscovery of the technology of making riveted mail. And that was late 90s. He actually got on the History Channel. He was on the History Channel with his halberd because he was doing a Crusaders Age of Mail halberd, extremely authentically and reproducing the technology that produced the mail. And he was on the History Channel as a result. But like I said, that was early on. So if you're going to weigh mail, or like how much does mail weigh? You might think that it weighs as much as the budded mail, but the budded mail, has to be thicker because this is not 16 gauge. This is lighter than 16 gauge, and then it's been flattened. If you flatten this, they'd be much thicker or much wider. So this requires a lot more metal to hold these rings together. Whereas if you're riveting them, it can be lighter gauge wire, and so it's not as heavy. So that's the kind of stuff that we've learned and expanded on as we've gone, that we just didn't have available in 1991 when it's putting together, much less 1979 or the 1960s when they're talking about medieval armor. Yeah, the flat rings. I love the look of the flat rings. I mean, I like the look of this too. This is a perfectly acceptable look, just for the look perspective. But I do love the flattened, riveted rings. James didn't wear it for any length of time to say, and also, are you going to have mufflers? Are you going to have the integrated coif? Are you going to have the chausses? It's difficult to find good chausses, especially that match your armor. Yeah, you also belt it so that, and kind of mushroom it a little bit so that there's weight sitting on the belt. And then you also do the same thing. You garter the chausses too. And then also up over the elbows, or below the elbows, rather, when you're wearing long sleeve talbers. First, it needs to be tailored. So first of all, you don't need a lot of extra mail too. I mean, so if you're just trying to get some type of mail shirt that you can put on at a Renaissance fair, it has to be large enough that it can fit a large number of people, and you got all this extra mail hanging on each other off yourself. So if you have your gambeson, which that's before I would tailor this, I need to get myself to the right size, and then I've got to find the right padding underneath it and get that sorted off, and then put this on top of it and then tailor it. So tailored so that you don't have a whole bunch of extras, also a thing. To wonder why to do something is clearly a sign of age. Oh, Benjamin, you've done the Compostela? Oh, I am so jealous. Benjamin says, I did the Compostela 20 years ago with 2 dear friends. It was quite a walk without the armor, but I got to hand it to you. That is a great idea. It would be so awesome. I've been over to Spain, and I was talking, this was years ago, and I was talking to other people who were going by and were pilgrims, or who had been pilgrims, and he was talking about having done the Compostela and how that it was actually pretty easy. Now, he was talking about easy from the perspective of finding your way, like that the routes are marked, and that there are places for you to stay in the evenings. Now, whether or not you can walk that far, that's one thing. But as far as that, he was saying that it was actually an easy thing to go and do. And so I was like, man, that would be so cool. Now, on the other hand, you could do, aluminum armor if you just wanted the look of it, and it would be easier. I had a friend also who was trying to organize a march along the Appalachian Trail. I'm over here in Alabama. I'm not in Europe. Was trying to march along the Appalachian Trail and wanted to do it in a Roman gear. Now, that would also be cool to, if you're like, especially if you're watching along, you're just walking along the Appalachian Trail, and then a unit of Romans come up behind you. And you've got and Roman legionnaires are marching up the Appalachian Trail. That would also be cool. It's much easier for me to get to the Appalachian Trail than it is to the Compostela March. I set this on top of this book. I guess it's okay. Than it is for me to get to the Appalachian Trail. And it would seem like it's also easier to practice. I think I'd also want to practice that march. So, but rather than saying, all right, everybody get together Roman gear, we're going to do the Appalachian Trail. And then everybody get together, Crusades Age of Mail armor. And then we're going to go do the Compostela. It probably makes sense to do both of them in the same suits. You practice at the Appalachian Trail and then go over. You can also ride it on horseback. And if I were going to do it, though, I'd want you can. I think you does it qualify the Compostela March if you do it on horseback? Does it qualify to get the pilgrimage badge? If you don't know what we're talking about, I guess I should have said that. The Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage. And of course, it's a bunch of right here. Okay, so right here. Santiago de Camino de Santiago. This is, or in English, the Way of St. James, is a network or pilgrim's way of pilgrimage leading to the shrine of the Apostle James in the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia in northwest Spain. So here's the Santiago de Compostela. And so you're going out there on a pilgrimage, and they're all these different pilgrimage routes that lead through Europe. So I was going through, when I came in, and I was going through Spain, I went through Portugal, and then I went through southern Spain and ended up in southern France. And so I was listening to other people who talked about going in northern Spain and having done the Compostela. So you can start in a lot of different places. I mean, you can walk for a long way if you want to. coming in and then ending up in Santiago de Compostela. But it's a pilgrimage march. That's a medieval pilgrimage march that is still recognized today. So you've got let's see, the scallop symbol. The scallop shell, often found on the shores of Galicia, has long been the symbol of the Camino de Santiago. After centuries, the scallop shell has taken on a variety of meanings, metaphorical, practical, and mythical, and its relevance may have even been derived from the desire of pilgrimages to take home a souvenir. And also, I've heard, and this may be something that comes in later, but you saw all of the different pilgrimage routes that converge on Santiago de Compostela, and that's like the lines of this of the seashell converging on the central point. That may be something that was retroactively applied. So medieval routes of this pilgrimage, but the modern day pilgrimage. You can take several different routes. And what was it saying? So in order to get the passport, most pilgrims purchase or carry a document called a credencial, which gives access to overnight accommodations along the route. Also known as the pilgrimage passport, the credential is stamped with the official St. James stamp in each town. That's what I'd want. I don't want to get that. To have the pilgrimage passport that shows where you have been. And then the journey was complete it provides the pilgrims with a record of where they ate and slept, and serves as proof to the pilgrimage's office in Santiago that the journey was accomplished according to an official route, and thus the pilgrim qualifies to receive the Compostela, the certificate of completion of the pilgrimage. Because by the time you get to the cathedral, I would want to say, here I am, and you present your passport, your pilgrimage passport, and then you receive your certificate of completion. So to earn the Compostela, one needs to walk a minimum of 100 kilometers or cycle at least 200 kilometers. So it would have to be, and actually from for the practical perspective, that's not actually, I was like, oh, that's not actually that far. It's like 66 miles or something that you have to walk in order to complete the Compostela. Like in order to earn the pilgrimage badge, And then from a practical standpoint, if you're going to do it in armor and you're going to have it recorded and it's going to be like a mini documentary, like I said, this would be something that would be so cool to do. I don't know how that fits into the plans, but it would be something that would be so cool to do. Probably doing the minimum, like finding a 100-kilometer route and doing that would be more practical than doing like a 500-mile walk or something. Gives the number of people involved. And a lot of people can't, like, hey, you want to take off work? We're going to go walk for 500 miles in armor through Europe. Okay, maybe 100 kilometers might be better. But then, yeah, as long as you, and I thought elsewhere it did talk about a certain amount of horseback riding. So, or, what could be fun is if you said, all right, we're going to do 150 kilometers. If in order to actually do the pilgrimage, you've got to walk 100 kilometers. Say we're going to do 150 kilometers. We'll ride horses for the first 50 kilometers. And then walk from there on out in order to be appropriately penitent. Anyway, that would be cool. Sable says, aluminum chain armor would be much better way for functions it's supposed to fill than steel chain. Lighter and more rigid, it's more brittle, but requires a lot more force to deform. Lynn says, I would have to check with some of my armorer friends in the SCA as to when riveted mail became popular. Check on that. Because I would say, that it wasn't until this is just my recollection from my recollection that it was the early aughts when actual shops started to be set up again. Armory started to be set up again to produce riveted stuff. And there was also, I believe, an armory in Vietnam that produced not riveted. There was a shop in, I believe, Vietnam that produced welded titanium mail. I remember the welded titanium mail. I believe that started in early aughts as well. Because the friend of mine who was, I'll look him up. Who had started to develop the technique. Now, I'm sure there were also probably multiple people at the same time. but had taken that technique, and then there started to be or people who had taken that technique that had been developed by him and others at that time, and then gone to India or Vietnam or other places and actually established armories with the tools. And that's when we started to get a whole bunch of armor. There was started a whole bunch of mail again. The first of it was of very questionable quality, but it has to start someplace. Is this? I love this. Let me bring this up. I love this coif right here. You know, one of my pet peeves with male armor is that when you've got people, especially in movies, who are put on a coif and it's real floppy and it's even open in the front. You see this all the time in movies. And I'm sure it's because it's easier to get a coif that's larger. And then that way, no matter who the actor is that's going to be there, you put the coif on the actor. And then, okay, it looks like the armor the guy's wearing, but it doesn't work because it'll be so big that's like not defending the neck at all. And it's really floppy. And no one would actually fight in that. Because when you're looking at something like this, and I love this reproduction from Armor at the time, that this coif is not flopping around on his head. I mean, he has the leather band up here to keep it on his head, and then it's defending his throat. It's not floppy. There's not a whole bunch of extra mail. There's not a whole bunch, or there's not a big gap in his throat either. And then they've got the piece that comes up and ties around his chin, which, first of all, also keeps the coif in place, and then also continues to defend the neck and also more of the face. I mean, I love that look. That's not, I was looking for Stephen of Fourth Castle. Is that Stephen of Fourth Castle? I'm not sure. But I love that look. That's a really nice reproduction, I think. Well, it's like, okay, as opposed to like this right here. Like, why would you wear this coif that's going to be flopping around all over the place and is leaving your neck exposed? Like, what is going on with that? That at least much better. That one doesn't have the chin cup, but that one's not going to flop around on the face. I mean, if I'm wearing a coif, I don't want it flopping around on my head. Have TSL Frontman asked, have you considered experimenting with 3D printed rings made of sheets reinforced red? No, I have not, because I don't have a 3D printer. I was talking about that the other day, and I may be getting a 3D printer reasonably soon, because I've got a project at the end of the 6 months that I was talking about that I need, and probably I need to be able to 3D print my own prototypes. But I've been trying to not get into 3D printing because I know that I'll become obsessed with it. And this house is already filled with enough little pieces of plastic. And I know if I get a 3D printer that I'm going to be printing miniatures and 3D dungeons from Fat Dragon Games and all of that constantly. And I don't want to fill up my house. So I've been delaying until I can. Oh, man. One thing that bugs me with Lord of the Rings, I'm with you, Sable. One of the things that bugged me about the Lord of the Rings movies, they have too many people wearing cuirasses or even full plate. In the books, only the Knights of Dol Amroth had plate. Everyone else wore mail. I am completely with you, Sable. And we don't even know the extent that the Knights of Dol Amroth had plate. The only reference that I am aware of is that Prince Imrahil, when he goes and picks up Eowyn, he knows that she's alive because he's wearing a vambrace, which is clearly, which is metal. And so when the vambrace comes close to her mouth, her breath mists upon his vambrace. And so he knows that she's alive. And that's the only reference that I am aware of that. So I am also a big proponent of that. Now, I realize that from the movie perspective, what they really wanted to do was, and an important thing to do, is to make the Rohirrim and the Gondorians visually distinct. So they were trying to make them extremely visually distinct. And of course, from the movies, they captured that. So they went, you know exactly who is Rohirrim and who is Gondorian. But as a consequence of that, they went very heavy on the plate, shall we say, for the Gondorians. And right, and I'm also against that because they also looked very a lot of the Gondorians looked very uniformed in plate. And I wouldn't have gone that route either, because I am a huge stickler on this point. I know that for some people, what type of weapons, what type, especially armor, are in the Lord of the Rings is like a religious is like a religious fight for some people. Because I am also definitely on the side that they should have been wearing mail, and that the most advanced armor. So there is a little bit of plate armor in Middle Earth, and it appears to come out of the armories of Dol Amroth, and the wealthiest of the knights wear it. So obviously the prince is wearing it. So the prince is wearing some type of augmented plate augmented mail. And then also I would allow his swan knights. And I wrote that to be wearing the same thing. And I wrote that when I was working on a Lord of the Rings conversion, that the only ones who were wearing plate were the Prince of Dol Amroth himself, plate augmented mail, the Prince of Dol Amroth himself, and then also his swan knights. Let me see if I can come up with I'm probably finding this book over here. So difficult to find good. Just even Google image search to come up with something reasonable is so difficult today. Let me grab a book from right over here behind on the other side of the room. Let's see. See, I knew these were good conversations because we hadn't even really gotten into that book. Into the other book, so we're about to. We need to at least get through mail. But see, like this right here, I love this look. This is in one of the Osprey books. So I think I would have had more knights. Of course, this is obviously heavily inspirational for Rabavania, but this is also I think how I would have started basing a lot of the like the Gondorian knights. See, that's from Luz and Evesham. Let's go forward slightly. No, I can't have the right. I can't ever find the right book. But then you advance that a little bit, and you have plate augmented on their plate augmentations on their mail. Wait, maybe this book right here. Okay, yeah. See, this right here, at the best I can come up with, let me take this down. At the best I can come up with on the spot is how I would have armored the Swan Knights of Dol Amroth. So he's clearly still in mail. I mean, we were still in the age of mail here, but like he's got the vambrace right there. So that's what Erwin's breath would have missed it against. And then he's got greaves on, and he's got some knee cops here. And so there are a few different pieces of plate that are on him. So I had always thought that something like this is how the Swan Knights, the Prince Imrahil and his Swan Knights of Dol Amroth looked. That's, to me, that would be the pinnacle of armoring technology in Middle Earth. So if I were to put together, and I thought about this a long time ago, I started kind of playing around with it. Like, what would like if I were to come up with miniatures for Lord of the Rings gaming, doing Lord of the Rings and the different cultures of Middle Earth the way that I believe they are and have interpreted the text, going back to the text, not the movies, but going back to the text and their interpretations of them. Knights like this. Now, of course, you'd probably decorate them in blue and things like that as far as their coats of arms go. But that right there is my interpretation of Prince Imrahil and the Knights of Dol Amroth. Very close right there. That was from English Medieval Knight, 1300 to 1400. One of the Osprey books. Let's see. Lynn says, so we're going back over here. We'll get to this back here in just 1 second. Lynn says, the only mail that I own is actually a t-shirt with the pattern printed on it. Lightweight, comfortable, and convincing from a distance, but not very protective. It doesn't chafe, yes. Lynn says, if I were going to do a long hike in Roman garb, I'd stick with the tunic. Oh, Benjamin says, we're talking about the Compostela. We lost our way once and ended up sleeping on the porch of a tiny chapel in the middle of nothing. Great times. That does sound fantastic. God, I would love to do that. Sounds perfect. Mike says, being on the trail to see that would be such a fun to see. It would be such a fun to see as we had a squad of stormtroopers. Being on the trail to see that would be as much fun to see as when we had a squad of stormtroopers arrive at the Ren Fair. We had fun asking them about the odd clubs that they carried. Oh, was it a German map that we were looking at? I know. I would. It's been so long since I've traveled. There's a route for the Compostela that comes that apparently they did, like English people did, because you could arrive on the shore by boat. And it's one of the shorter routes. It's one of the shortest routes that qualifies for the Compostela pilgrimage. And so I need to go visit the UK anyway. It would be really neat to go visit the UK and then come across and then start the Compostela March and end it in Santiago de Compostela. That would be neat. That would be one of the shorter marches. From a practical standpoint of getting people together, that would be it. Yeah, but they got it done. I had a friend who had the titanium welded mail. Well, now I don't remember this company right here, Titanium Mithril. No, it's a titanium, but he's not welding it. No, there was a guy who's like, I believe it was Vietnam. His wife was from Vietnam, and then he said, I got an idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a shop. And it was like a lot of his wife's family that all became armorers. And so they set up shop in Vietnam to produce welded titanium mail. PH says, my cousin lives in the country. Once a year, he rides a horse 2 or 3 days with a bunch of friends. They go to one city to another, drink, and prove their manhood. I really like to joust. And I've got friends who do that. But my problem with that is that the horses... on paper, I would love to have a horse and be able to ride it, but it's such an expensive hobby. Like ride it in armor and also have it for jousting, but it's such an expensive hobby. Like I don't even own a plant. I don't have a pet. People keep telling me I need to get a pet, like maybe a cat. I mean, or a rabbit. I should probably have a pet rabbit. I mean, I've thought about that. I've thought about having a pet rabbit around here. That might be fun some mornings. I'm here, and then the rabbit's here with us on the morning grinds. I have thought about that, but it just seems like that to me. That also seems like a lot of work. That's why I don't even have a plant. Like there's no plant in this house. There's no flowers in the yard other than the grass. I mean, there's the grass. I take care of the grass. I've been working hard to take care of the grass, but I don't take care of plants. So to have a horse. And especially if I'm going to have one horse, you could have 2 horses. So when your friend comes over, you have 2 horses to joust with. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Sable says titanium welded mail on Kevlar gambeson would be ultimate in material science armor. I hear that, but in the process of emptying as much plastic as I can bear to part with. I'm going to have to go through here and get rid of. I mean, I'm not getting rid of board games and things like that. But man, I used to be such a minimalist as far as my stuff. And it's just, exploded. Oh, you're on with us on the LOTR. Right. I'm gonna get that with Space Creep. You think you'd be blown away with what you can make with even a small $150 printer, like especially if it's just constantly over there working and making me things. Yeah, I know the elves were wearing plate too, as were the Uruk-hai. You know, I can deal with the Uruk-hai a bit more. I can deal with the Uruk-hai a bit more because we've seen like we were talking about that panoply, that earliest plate armor as it was done. Now, they are casting things. But yeah, if I were putting together my, I went immediately to Gondor, but there are others examples too. You're right, Sable. And if I were putting together my miniatures of Lord of the Rings, the Uruk-hai would not be wearing plate. Oh, and certainly the elves would not. I mean, both of them. Heat metal was a big deal in AD&D. Multiverse, well, now fantasy, then that starts getting into other things, right? Yeah, outside of Earth history, fantasy armors would be articulated similar to dragon scales. This includes the assembly of metal plates. Hey, John, welcome, welcome. Exactly, that's exactly it. I love horses and would love to own them, but they cost so much and requires. And especially, I was thinking about the people who took them to like SCA events. Talking about an additional level of expense, like getting your horse in the trailer, and we're going to go for a weekend, and we're going to take a bunch of horses with us. I mean, that's also another level of expense. It's one thing if you have the tilt yard at your own house, and you can joust and tilt with the horses in your yard. But also, like, all right, let's all get these horses. I mean, it's difficult enough, like to get all of your period camping gear together to go for the weekend. If you're going to take also a trailer full of horses, I mean, this is a major operation. Lynn says, fun fact: titanium is one of the few elements that will burn in a pure nitrogen atmosphere. 800 C will ignite it. You won't even burn in pure oxygen until you hit 1200 degrees C. Interesting. Well, I know that's true too. See, I wouldn't get just one. I would get two so that it has someone to play with. And the same way with a rabbit. That's the thing that's like, okay, we'll get one. Well, I'm not going to get one. If you get one, it should have somebody to play with. So it would be 2 cats or 2 rabbits. Let's see. Oh, come to Maryland? Well, see, that would be fantastic. Come to Maryland, like that. See, that would be fun. I would love to do that. If we get something sustainable going here on YouTube, it would be fun to go someplace. I could go someplace and joust, for a week or two. That would be fun. Then I don't have to set it all up here. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. JDM says, I don't think an ordinary horse can be jousted on. You would need to train it to joust, which would take a lot of time, energy, and probably the service of an expert. Right. Yeah, I know. That's an additional expense. You can't just you can't just buy a horse from somebody else and then go, okay, now I'm going to joust on it. I mean, it depends on if you're talking about jousting at rings too versus like jousting at another person. Like, I'm sure there's a difference there too, but you're right. It's not just because you have a horse doesn't mean you're gonna be able to joust on it. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. No, one of my favorite SCA experiences was mounted doing some of the equestrian stuff. We were trying to promote that, and I loved doing the horse drills. I only got to do it once, but that's also one of my favorite memories as far as an SCA event. And there was a guy, and I wish I knew his name, who was there, who was a knight, and he had an extremely authentic age of male harness. And on his horse, I mean, he looked the most perfect looking person. Of course, in the SCA, there's a wide range of, the authenticity, a wide range. But man, and he was out there on the field that day, and I mean, he looked exactly like a 12th century knight, like exactly what you would think a 12th century knight would look like. It was so incredible. How much land do I have? Build your own list, joust in the backyard. I'm only on an acre. I only have an acre of land. Okay. Actually, I'm kind of curious about putting this male arm on, but let's take a look. This was our purpose here. This has been so fantastic. I love talking with you guys. So our purpose here was to take a look at what AD&D says about chain mail. Chain mail. in 1991. So let's see what this is. Let's at least do this. And then maybe I'll go get another shirt and I'll put on this mail, because it's been a long time since I've had that Hallbrook on. I don't even remember what it was. Chain mail. All right. Description. Chain mail is made of interlocking metal rings. It's always worn over a layer of padded fabric or soft leather to prevent chafing and lessen the impact of blows. Campaign use. Chain mail is the standard medium armor in most fantasy campaigns. In many places, it's so common the price of a good suit of chain mail may actually be cheaper or less sophisticated, be cheaper than less sophisticated armors like scale mail and brigandine. This makes the appeal of chain armor very high indeed. Chain mail is only slightly heavier than hide or brigandine armor. I suppose that's questionable. It depends on, see, that's such a generalization too, because like, are you wearing chausses? Or are you wearing full sleeves? Like, what are you doing? Important to the wearer, however, is the fact that the weight of the suit of mail does not rest evenly upon the body. Rather, most of the burden of the chain suit rests upon the shoulders, making chain armor feel heavier than it really is. In game terms, this means chain mail can be worn for only about a day before the shoulders of even the greatest warriors begin to fatigue. Like, is that true? Who else has been out there in mail armor for more than a day? Experienced warriors usually carry a second set of lighter armor, often leather or studded leather, for use when traveling at night or when not on watch. Do knights do that? Optional rule. Prolonged shoulder fatigue from wearing chainmail for more than one day at a time affects combat. -2 to hit and leads to headaches and backaches. In general, chainmail is worn by mid-level fighters, guardsmen, mercenaries, and men-at-arms with some official capacity. So, but then again, this is Dungeons and Dragons trying to throw all of these different armors together. Because, like in Rabivania, or in the 12th century, I mean, a full hauberk is your pinnacle of armor technology. In general, chainmail is worn by mid-level fighters, guardsmen, mercenaries, and men-at-arms with some official capacity. The price of chainmail is equivalent to many years of income for most peasants and is thus out of reach for most common folk. Although there must have been a lot of mail in Europe at one time. I mean, they were making, they'd been making mail for a long time. So by the time you got to like the 13th, 14th, 15th century, there must have been, now, of course, some of it degrades and rusts. I get that. But there must have been a lot of mail stacking up in Europe. The price of chainmail is equivalent to many years of income for most peasants and thus out of reach for some common folk. However, some middle-class families have a set or two of heirloom chainmail handed down from glorious days past for use in dangerous days to come. Typically, town guards and noble patrols are bedecked in chainmail armor. It's perfect for short-duty tours and gives the noble warrior a great advantage over the local rabble. Just the difference between chainmail and leather armor alone can give the officer a significant advantage over most ruffians. Anyone wearing chainmail armor with some sort of heraldic crest or uniform is usually assumed to be a local official of some kind by the experienced and perceptive traveler. In general, chainmail is the basis for all of the most advanced and more protective armors found in the AD&D game campaigns. The potential low cost of chainmail is reflected by the fact that many sets of chainmail are bought as a base for banded mail and the more sophisticated plate armors. Because chainmail armor is not usually worn for long periods of time, its underlying padding rarely suffers the problems of padded armors. The metal mail, however, will rust if not oiled and scrubbed with a wire brush weekly. Better have a squire for that. Naturally, this applies only to ferrous armor mail and not to chainmail constructed of non-ferrous metals. Chainmail is certainly the best armor value for adventurers who cannot yet afford heavier armors. And then here we come to the highly controversial ring mail. I'm not really big on this picture over here. We're talking about the different types of the art in here. This is an okay picture, but then again, if you're trying to show off mail, I think I would have done it with a different picture. But this guy right here is wearing, yes, an obvious depiction of our highly controversial ring mail, which I believe, as been discussed earlier, is not something that people believe exists anymore. I've never seen an example of that. It's very fantasy. You see it in fantasy movies all the time, ring mail, but I've never seen in a museum an example of ring mail. James says, this stream series has been awesome. Yeah, I know. Maybe we should do some clipping of this. I'm going to have to do some clipping of this because this has been wonderful. Let's see. So ring mail. So here's what it says. This form of chain mail is made. So it says ring mail is a form of chain mail. Like, what is going on here? This form of chain mail is made by sewing large rings into a leather or cloth backing. I'm remembering this. All of a sudden, this came to me. I actually tried to make this. One of my earliest attempts at armoring was to make ring mail. I thought, hey, maybe I could make some ring mail. Because at the time, and then what I did is I went right into like my first attempt was probably some ring mail because I thought, oh, I can't make mail, the budded mail. Like I was living at my parents' house and I didn't have an armory, and I was like, what kind of stuff can I make just here in my bedroom that won't bother my parents? And so my first thought was ring mail, and so I was trying to make big rings, and I was trying to sew them on a T-shirt, and that did not work. It did not work. I had a grand idea, but it did not work. I probably only spent a day or two on that before I was like, this sucks. And then actually started to use the same, because I think I was using really ridiculous. It was probably the same 16 gauge rings that I was trying to make, and just ridiculous. It was ridiculous from so many levels. So that did not work. But then immediately, I was like, okay, well, can I just actually do mail? And then I figured out I could. And so I made a hallmark of mail. That was cool. But this form of chain mail is sewn by large rings of metal to a leather or cloth backing. Ring mail has the same role in early period campaigns that chain mail has in later ones. In later campaigns, it's more expensive to buy than chain mail, weighs comparative amount, provides worse protection, AC 7, and suffers all the maintenance problems of padded and studded leather armor. Few human groups other than town militias and bandit gangs use ring mail to any significant degree. Yeah, so this looks to me, what this guy's wearing right here, this is supposed to be our depiction of ring mail. And that looks a lot like the depictions that I've seen, historical artistic depictions that probably brought the idea of ring mail into Victorian consciousness. Whereas actually it may just is more likely to be just a bad artistic interpretation of mail, of chain mail. So as far as I know, ring mail is not something that ever existed, and is a misinterpretation of some artistic elements of trying to depict chain mail. Yeah, Ray. So Lynn agrees. So I'm not the final authority on this. This is why I also love the live format, as other people have different information. So Lynn says, as far as I know, there are no physical examples of ring mail in the archaeological record. It's been postulated from period illustrations. That's my understanding as well. And it's possible that it's a misinterpretation of those period illustrations. That's my understanding as well. Sable says, I prefer older versions of D&D where your armor type added pluses based on type to your overall AC rather than setting the base armor class itself. And I was thinking about this, the Complete Fighter's Handbook in AD&D had rules for piecemeal AC. I see the discussion about the Ren fairs. But JDM says, I get it. The Ren Fair can't turn business away, and it's free, and it's a free country. But it would be nice if Ren Fairs did a historical accuracy day or the like. Yes. Okay, let's try a couple of things on. What time have I got? Okay, we got a few minutes. We got tons of stuff to do behind everything. I've been working in the yard. I was going outside to work in the yard, and I was like, get outside for an hour or two before I get back in and start working on editing and stuff. But the yard work has consumed me for 2 days. That was not my intention. Okay, so I made this. This was, I was trying to come up with something. Oh, let me put this back up. I was trying to come up with something. This was a long time ago. I just found this here in the office. But rather than a coif, if you don't need a whole coif, I still love the look. You can tell because here's my rabbit warriors. Oh, and by the way, this was something else I meant to bring up. The direction that male lays. So like my rabbit warrior, this is the prototype for my action figures here. They're very much age of male. So they're wearing the male hauberk and the male hauberk, and then their surcoats, and then they've got a coif on top, and of course they've got the it's down on the back, but they could pull that up to defend their heads. So they've got the coif here, and then I was very careful to make sure that these were sculpted with the male laying in the right direction. So sometimes it's not uncommon to have the male, like in artistic depictions, especially in role-playing games. It seems like I've seen a lot of role-playing games with the male laying in the wrong direction. The male needs to lay in this direction. Otherwise, you can turn yourself into like a Chinese finger trap trying to get out of it. So the male, I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can see a little bit right here. We'll take a look at this in a real example right here. But I wanted to be sure that the male was laying in the right direction. It's down, and then it comes up over the shoulders and goes in the same direction down here. And then also down here on the chausses. So the sculpting of the male is in the correct direction here. Just attention to detail when you're making your action figures. But I was trying to say, but if you're not wearing a whole coif, I was like, I would think that I still love the mantle over the shoulders, and you got to do something to defend your neck. And so I did 6-in-1. So this is a 4-in-1 weave. This is an expanding 4-in-1 weave here that goes over the shoulders. And then this is a 6-in-1 weave up here for the neck. And I was planning on putting some type of like leather backing on the back of it, and sewing a leather backing to the back of the neck. And then also it'll need some type of clasp or buckle along the back to hold it on the back. Probably smaller is better, not to interfere with your helmet. But it needs some type of clasp on the back. It needs leather sewn on here. And of course I did do that. When it's polished up, this looks nice. This is galvanized, so it needs to have some of the, which is like some kind of oxide that goes on. You can make the galvanized look really nice. But then up here, you got the brass wire. Those look really golden when they're polished up. But 6-in-1 weave, that's only a 6-in-1 weave that I've done. But that's the 6-in-1 weave there. I think the 6-in-1 weave is, the neck is a good place for a 6-in-1 weave. All right, let's see. Maybe I should do the morning grind like this. Maybe I should get this going and then make sure that every morning on the morning grind, I wear this. And I can't. Yeah, I can't. To me, that is a great look. To me, that is a great look. If I were actually wearing a surcoat, I mean, I would wear this. I can't see if I turn around. I don't know if you can. You got the chair. But to me, that's a great look. If you're not wearing a full coif, maybe, yeah, exactly. Maybe I need to finish it. Maybe I need to finish this just for the grind so I can wear this on the morning grind. But, like I said, this is just budded male. This takes almost nothing to make. I mean, anybody could make this. So the budded male is a very accessible armor to make. It looks good. You could do this very easily. But that does look good. So that was something. That project needs to be finished. This project needs to be finished, like with my St. Wenceslas helm. If I find my St. Wenceslas helm, I believe the St. Wenceslas helm is still in the workshop, unfinished, and I need to finish it. But I love the look of the mantle over a surcoat. I just love it. I tell you what, I'm going to put on this hauberk because it's been so long since I don't even remember exactly what it's like. You're not that tough of an audience. I bet I could find some leather and finish that. Need to polish it up. What shirt? Hang on. Let me grab a shirt Oh, right here. Oh. That's not what I thought it was. Well, whatever. I actually realized that the shirt that I was wearing anyway has a big hole in it. So actually, I guess it's not a big deal to put it. I realized this shirt's got to go anyway because it's got a hole in it. So this shirt got to go anyway. So let's see what this mail is like. I believe this is stainless steel. I believe this is riveted stainless steel. This is not titanium. There's no way that I was able. This was from years ago. There's no way that I was able to afford a riveted titanium shirt. Let me take this off. Watch off. Maybe I should go out. Maybe when I'm working in the yard this afternoon, like cutting the grass, I should wear this. My neighbors already think that I'm weird enough. Might as well wear armor when cutting the grass. It has a good look. Oh, that does have a good look. Oh, it's been a long time since I've worn any kind of armor. See, it's not tailored. That's what I was talking about, tailoring. Got to reach up under. So it needs to be tailored to me. Look how dirty I got. I told you that, that this mail is dirty. There. Am I wearing it? I don't remember there being an inside. I don't remember there being a front or a back. I might be wearing it backwards. Hairbrush. So I would say that's a pretty good looking coat. But over here, yeah, it's possible. I mean, look at how much extra mail. It looks like something's caught right there. Yeah, I need to get this coat. So it's kind of get the half sleeve length. But I would say that's pretty good. But see, it needs tailoring. It needs cleaning. And I remember trying to clean this quite a bit. Let me put my microphone back here. I remember trying to clean this quite a bit. I don't remember where this came from. But I do like the male look. I was going to wear this with Bosy Bonds. But like, why do you need something about that? Why do I need this much extra sleeve? They make these things for guys that are a lot larger than I am. And you have to, I guess, if you're in the male business, if you're in the male armoring business and you're trying to sell off the shelf shirts of mail, then they have to be for bigger guys. Because the guys, smaller guys can get swallowed up in them, but you got to have the bigger guys. You got to be able to fit the bigger guys. But that's why I think that a lot of this mail must have been tailored. And you wouldn't just be buying, I don't think in the Middle Ages you're just buying off the shelf coats of mail. You can see the difference in the look. So here's the problem. You start mixing sorts of mail, mixing different mail, because you can definitely see the difference. In the budded and the in the butted and the riveted mail. So you can't really mix both. You can't really do it. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look right. Yeah. Sable says mail was definitely tailored. Like if you're buying it, if you were buying it to fight it, I definitely think that it was tailored. That you wouldn't just buy something. You wouldn't tolerate this. You would not tolerate the situation of this male shirt. It seemed in the stomach, it's pretty reasonable. But these sleeves are ridiculous. All right. Well, all right. One page down in the AD&D arms and equipment guide. Well, I mean, probably so. But if you were buying yourself a suit, having it fit you right for a battle. This is cutting into my throat right here too. That's why I'm wondering, do I have it on backwards? But I don't really think there was a front and a back to this. But you'd want to prevent that. All right. Well, who knows? I'll have to think about this male shirt. All right, everybody. This has been fun. This has been one of the most fun morning grinds that we've had. I really enjoyed it. All right, everybody. I am out of here. The mail completely changes your seeming demeanor. I got chills. All right. Well, I am going to try to do some other things today. Get things done. You've got mail. Yes, I do. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Go be creative. Be constructive. I will see everybody later. Until then, until tomorrow, grind on.